Welcome back to The Explainer. I'm so glad you're here because today we're diving into something absolutely crucial. We're looking straight at the material from Class 007, Present Reality, and Daily Systems. Look, if you want to actually communicate in English day to day, this is your bedrock. Today, we're mastering the present simple. Think of this not just as grammar, but kind of like the operating system for your entire daily routine. I'm going to walk you through this step by step, giving you the exact formulas you need to describe your life.
Okay, let's dive into this with a really straightforward 5-step guide. We'll hit 1, the core purpose, 2, the affirmative form, 3, the negative form, 4, interrogative form and answers, and finally, 5, time expressions and a quick summary.
So step 1, the core purpose. I want you to start thinking about grammar not as, just a bunch of arbitrary rules, but more like a math formula for real life. The present simple is the tense we use specifically to describe repeated actions, habits, routines, and general truths. So this isn't about what you're doing right this exact second. It's about the reliable reality of your everyday life. It's the tense of consistency. Whenever you want to tell someone about the habits that make you who you are, or the schedule you grind out week in and week out, this is exactly the tool you reach for.
And this brilliantly illustrates a fundamental difference in how languages operate. Take the Spanish phrase, estudio todos los días. The subject, I, is just hidden inside the verb, right? But in English, the direct translation is, I study every day. English absolutely requires strict subjects and strict word order. You literally can't just say study every day. You have to explicitly state the I. This is the very first building block of our system.
But before we actually build our first sentence structure, we've got to lock in the 2 golden rules of this tense. Seriously, treat these like unbreakable laws. Rule number 1, word order is essential. You can't just mix and match where your words go. And rule number 2, the verb changes specifically in the third person. That means whenever we talk about he, she, or it, our verb undergoes a physical transformation. Keep these 2 rules in the back of your mind as we go.
Moving right along to step 2, the affirmative form.
Like any good engineer, we gotta start with our structural baseline. Subject plus base verb plus complement. Simple, clean, effective. But here's where we map out that critical third-person rule to separate our subject groups. For the subjects I, you, we, and they, you just use the base form of the verb. You change absolutely nothing. Easy, right? However, when you shift to he, she, or it, you must add an s or an es to the end of that verb. This little split is basically the heartbeat of English grammar.
Let's detail the exact spelling variations for this third-person shift because, well, the mechanics of the letters really do matter. Usually you just tack on an S, so play becomes plays. Simple enough. But if a verb ends in a sound like ch, you add es, making watch become watches. And look closely at this third one, study. When a verb ends in a consonant followed by a y, we drop that y, add an I, and then add es. So study becomes studies.
Let's see this in action. Really feel the rhythm of these examples. I study English. They work every day. Notice those nice, clean base verbs? Now contrast that with the third person. She studies English. He plays football. You can literally hear that S locking the subject and verb together. Now listen up, because here is a massive warning. Do not add an S with I, you, we, or they. Saying I plays or they works is hands down the single most common mistake learners make. Stick to the structure.
All right, step 3, the negative form.
Here's our explicit negative structure. We start with the subject, then we add an auxiliary verb, either do or does, followed by not, and finally our base verb. Now in everyday spoken English, do not almost always contracts into don't, and does not contracts into doesn't. These little helper verbs step in and carry all the heavy grammatical weight for us. Let's clearly map out the exact subject breakdown for these auxiliaries with some real-world proofs from our source text. For I, you, we, and they, we use don't. For example, I don't study on Sunday, but for our third-person subjects, he, she, and it, we use doesn't. So we get sentences like she doesn't work at night and he doesn't go on Sunday.
So the crucial point here is this major, non-negotiable warning rule. Listen to this incorrect phrase, she doesn't studies. No way, right? The correct phrase is, she doesn't study. Why? Well, because after doesn't, the main verb must revert back to its clean base form. The word doesn't is already doing the heavy lifting to show us it's the third person. You absolutely don't need the S on the main verb anymore. Never double up on the grammar.
This brings us to step 4, interrogative form and short answers.
Here is the exact structural breakdown for questions. Notice what happens here. Our auxiliary verbs do and does actually jump to the very front of the line. So the setup becomes do or does plus the subject plus the base verb. Just like in our negative sentences, because we're using do or does right at the beginning, the main verb stays perfectly clean in its base form no matter who the subject is.
Let's hear this fully integrated with some natural conversational energy. Listen to how smooth these sound. Do you study English? Does she work here? Do they work every day? Does she study at night? Notice how the word does completely replaces the need for any S on verbs like work or study when we're talking about she. The system is remarkably consistent once you crack that underlying code.
Now, when someone asks you one of these questions, you need to know the mandatory short answer structures. You rarely want to reply with just a blunt yes or no. It sounds a bit harsh. Instead, you politely echo the auxiliary verb. So if someone asks, do you study English? The structurally correct reply is yes, I do, or no, I don't. If they're asking about a third person, like does she work here? The answer is yes, she does, or no, she doesn't. It creates this perfectly balanced little conversational loop.
Let's move to step 5 and see how this all builds. Time expressions and summary.
To give our sentences exact parameters, we use specific keywords called time expressions. These are phrases like every day or every morning. We can use days of the week, like on Mondays or on Saturday. We can use specific clock times, like at 7 or at 8. We also use frequency links, like usually or always. Think of these expressions as the final piece of data that locks an action right onto your personal calendar.
Let's map out our final contextual examples and just celebrate how the structures, verbs, and time expressions flawlessly combine into complete systems. Listen to this. I wake up at 7. She studies every day. They play football on Saturday. I go to school at 8 o'clock. And notice the third person shift here. She goes to school at 8 o'clock. Every single one of these sentences follows the exact mathematical structure we've been building since the very beginning.
Now, what's really interesting here is when we lay it all out as an ultimate cheat sheet, you can see how logical and structured English grammar truly is. For affirmative, subject plus verb, adding an S for the third person. Negative, subject plus don't or doesn't plus the base verb. Question, do or does plus subject plus base verb. And the overarching core structure for everything we've done today? Subject plus verb plus time expression. Take a mental snapshot of those formulas. That is your master key.
We've covered a ton of ground today, completely breaking down the exact mechanics of Class 007. As our source material points out, this tense is the absolute foundation of daily communication in English. It is literally the language of your habits, your schedule, and your life's present reality. So I want to leave you with this to end our explainer today. Now that you hold the exact mathematical formulas for English routines, what daily system are you going to build and describe in English today? Keep practicing, keep applying those rules, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.